All right. Yeah, that seems to be working. So, uh, welcome everybody. It's Tad here from Marketing for Hippies. I'm here with Mark Silver, and we're talking about niching. So Mark is in Portland, Oregon. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, and we met years ago, came across each other's work, and Mark is one of my favorite colleagues in this whole world of marketing, and in the lead up for the Niching for Hippies program that I'm doing, I decided that I want to kind of renew my education in niching, because most of what I've learned has really been through doing my own workshops, seeing what's been happening at those workshops, and I know I've got so many colleagues who have other thoughts, and I've had conversations here and there, so I thought we'd have some formal ones, and I'm so stoked about this one with Mark. Thanks for being here, Mark.
Yeah, I always love talking to you. So I'm looking forward to learning something too, just in the conversation.
Yeah. So it's interesting. When I asked, one of the questions I was asking a lot of my colleagues was just, what do you see missing in the conversation around niching? What do you see that you think other people maybe aren't seeing? And you had such an interesting answer. It was one of the more interesting answers that I saw. And you said that you thought people put too much weight on the niching decision making, and that they mix it up with the idea of divine calling and life purpose, and that totally paralyzes folks and isn't necessary. And I'm wondering if you can say more about that.
Yeah, well, basically, I think people put too much weight on the decision make. No, I won't just. Just parroting what you said. What did I say? What am I talking about? Here's what I see is I see a lot. I mean, especially for the people that we work with, which there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
In who you work with and who we work with. I hear so many people coming to us saying, "Oh my God, Tad's amazing," which I love. I love hearing that from folks. But basically, you have this sense. So many people have this burning desire to contribute in the world, and to have a sense of calling. And am I doing the right thing with my life? And am I? There's all of this, and they think that somehow that needs to translate into making sure that they have the right business. And oh my God, how painful. I mean, like, if you had to make sure that you were doing your exact right divine calling while you were trying to figure out your niche so your business could work, so you have clients coming in, I mean, what else would paralyze you? Like deer in the headlights kind of thing. I just see so many people going, oh my goodness, that is too weighty a decision to make. And it is. It's really crazy. And, I've done a lot of work in spirituality and heart connection. I just recently completed my Master's of Divinity last year. That was intense with my spiritual teachers, and the work that I've really done in my Sufi lineage is that our calling is to show up with our heart. That our heart carries a jewel, and it carries a particular quality. I mean, we all carry everything. There's our hearts carry the reality of oneness in our hearts, but because we're unique human beings and because everyone all together makes up this oneness, there's like this holographic reality, but at the same time, not to get too esoteric, there's a jewel, if you will, a metaphorical jewel, but it works to the extent that there's a particular facet usually facing forward. And that facet of the jewel, whatever quality of the divine, whatever kind of special characteristic of your heart that is the most powerful, is there. I mean, it's just there. And I don't care what you do. I mean, my career has gone through a lot of different things. I ran a magazine. I was involved in fundraising. I was a paramedic. I've done a lot of different things before coming to Heart of Business. And when I look back over it, I can see my jewel shining in each place. And the divine doesn't care, in some sense, whether you're a tinker, a tailor, or a candlestick maker. And so what this means is that you're free. I think we're incumbent upon us, like the weight of responsibility has to do with letting our heart shine as fully as possible, making sure that we're bringing that sense of conscious love and healing to our presence as much as possible. But we're free to choose how we want to do that. And so choosing a niche can be a really lighthearted decision, and one that you can change up if it's not working, without risking losing your path. I'll say one more thing, is that there are some people in the world, like Mother Teresa, for instance, who's a hero of mine, who had a really expressed divine calling, go help the poor in Calcutta, which she did. And I think that, I mean, she's a saint. Like there's people that carry a certain, like we don't have to pretend to, like I'm not a saint like that. It's like we don't have, there are people that are put in those positions, but if we are placed in a position like that, then we'll know it. Like she did not have any doubts about her calling from a very young age. There was no, I wonder what I should do, and needing to do all these courses to kind of figure out, like, what kind of process. No, she had a calling in her heart, and she was moved by the divine. So I just want people to be a lot more lighthearted about choosing what they really enjoy doing and serving the people they really want to, they enjoy serving. So that's my rant or soapbox, if you will.
I love it. So there's the sense of like, so sort of our calling or our life purpose being experienced by so many people as being a very heavy thing and a decision I have to make, and what if I'm off track, and then there's all that stress around that, and that your understanding is that the only real purpose we have is to show up fully, show up with our hearts, be present, and that's going to show up in a lot of different ways for people. And so if that's the only real purpose, then the question is more about what are you going to enjoy, or how are you going to enjoy showing up or expressing your heart. So then the niche question isn't so much of this big heavy thing, it's just like how do you bring yourself fully to whatever you do, and what are you going to enjoy doing?
Yeah, I mean, my divine jewel has to do with the divine quality of strength, which is something that I struggled with for a long time. I mean, I'm lucky because I have a spiritual guide who gave me my spiritual name, Abdul Aziz, which is translates as the slave of the divine strength. And this sense of divine strength is something that I've struggled with all my life. Feeling weak, feeling not a strong sense of sovereignty in myself, and coming into that sense of sovereignty in my heart, and realizing that the translation of the divine quality Aziz not only means strength, but it also means cherished, beloved, and understanding really a profound, broad, really a lot of profundity in the definition of what strength is. But in terms of my business, heart of business, like I feel like my jewel, I have a responsibility to make sure that I'm bringing that out, my jewel out in the world. But I just like business. It's fun. I really enjoy it. And there's a sense of service, and there's a sense of, yes, the business world needs healing, and yes, there's a sense of mission and seriousness there. But if heart of business crumpled, or went away, I could shift to another focus. I was involved in healthcare. I've been involved with a lot of work around relationships and family healing. Like I could go into one of those niches with a lot of ease in my heart. Knowing that my jewel still needs to show up.
For you, there's that sense of like, well, I know that my purpose is just to show up fully with my heart, and I could do that in whatever path it is. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because it strikes me with niching that there are these sort of two sides to it, where it's, in the beginning I really kind of saw it as just like, it's the target market, it's your chosen audience, and who you're trying to reach. And it's that, but I feel like there's this yin and yang. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, the yin and yang of niching. Where it's like,
it's not clicking in the moment.
So it's like the yang is like, I think how most niching or target market happens, where it's like the outward focus, there's this group, I'm going to pursue them, and then the yin is more like the going inside and like, what do I want to give to the world? What am I excited to bring out? And then you offer it, and hopefully people see it and like it, and so it just feels like there's this constant dance between those two, because it's like on the far extreme of the yang, you've got Donald Trump, and it's just kind of looking at what's trending right now, what's hot, and you go for that. And then on the far yin side, you've got Vincent van Gogh, some of the world's most extraordinary art, and he dies totally poor because nobody found it. So this need to like go inside, find something, and then go out and be a little strategic and thoughtful about seeing, is there an audience for it? Who's responding to what? Because maybe they don't like his stuff in Holland, wherever he grew up. But maybe in France they would have loved it. Maybe in Spain or Italy, or maybe he would have been big in Japan. And so it just feels like there's both of those. So for me, the connection to what you're saying is, if people really go inside, it's like, what is that I have to offer the world? Like, what are my gifts? What are the qualities that I bring? Then, I've thought about it, like there's this idea of like there's three different facets of the niche, or one is the idea of the wound. It's like, what have we struggled with and overcome that often sets the direction. And then the tone of it often gets set by our nature. Some of us are very, light and fun. Some of us are very serious, and some of us are like rock and roll, and everyone just has a different vibe about them. So I think the tone of the kind of business gets set. But the shape of it, I feel like, gets shaped by the gifts that people bring. So if somebody's like got a gift of hospitality, they might organize a bunch of events and parties, or somebody else might want to do public speaking. Somebody else might be organizing things behind the scenes, even though it's the same kind of industry, the same thing. And so it just strikes me there's that connection of like, when people really get in touch, it affects the shape of it and the form of it, which also I feel like, and just who they are, their nature, which I guess is also connected, it really affects who's going to be drawn and who's going to be turned away from it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm always struck by the question of artistry in niching, because I think that the idea of wanting to express your art is really an important piece of it all. And yet I think that needs to be, like, if you're in business, at least, I mean, for me, business is about being in service. Yeah. And that I feel like I feel like the heart, what I've seen is that the heart is most fulfilled when we're in service, and that means seeing the people that we're serving and seeing what they're needing. Now, the gross inflation of that is seeing from a place of greed, like, what are people needing so I can take advantage of it, instead of seeing from a place of humility and sincerity of how can I serve people, and allowing yourself to be in the cycle of receiving also, and how can I receive so that I can continue giving. And I think that artistry can inform the beauty of how you serve. Like this touches on what I was saying about the jewel. Like, if you know the jewel of your heart, if you know your artistry, you can bring that out in the, if you want to use the word branding or style, or those words can feel a little superficial from what we're getting at, depending on how you use the words. But it's like the artistry, the love of expression of how you get there. As a Sufi teacher myself, I mean, a lot of my artistry comes out in how I bring an expression of spiritual teachings into the business teachings. I mean, I love that, there's a real love there for me, and how I bring the sense of connection to love and oneness into the business teachings. But, and I take some pleasure in that, and for it to be effective, I have to be able to see the people that I'm serving. And there's a term that a teacher that I knew a while ago called inclusive awareness. And this has to do with this sense of stepping back and witnessing from a higher level, where you can see yourself and you can see other people. It's not something that you can necessarily do from like a conscious intent. It's more of a surrendered place of just noticing and being with that, and then think, oh, my heart wants to give this, and these people are ready to receive this, and kind of being in
it is kind of a dance.
Allowing stuff to be modulated. Yeah, it's a dance.
Yeah, it's because it's interesting, because I feel like you could look at other people's needs and problems from a place of greed. It could also be looking at it from a place of need, of where it's like, oh, if I help these people, I'll feel good enough, and then people are doing things that actually it's not fulfilling. They're just collapsed and wanting people to love them, so that, do all these things, and then when people love them, it's great, but when people don't care or don't love them back, then it's so devastating, because it's not really them expressing themselves, it's them trying to fill some hole. This is also my early dating life, and
all of our early dating life, right?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and it ties to the other thing that you mentioned before we talked about, when I was asking what do you think is most important in niching, what's a distraction, and you were saying that the most important thing was understanding who you're serving and the problem you solve, and the distraction is what you do and how you do it. And this is something that I feel like you and I are just totally cut from the same cloth on, but I'm wondering if you want to say it in your own words, your sense of it.
Yeah, well, I think that, the important piece is this being of service. I mean, the artistry and all of this is important because it's about, but for me, the primary thing is being of service. I feel like, especially in Western culture, this idea of being of service can get lost. It's such an individualized culture, and there's so many messages about taking care of yourself and self-empowerment that we lose the sense of surrender and service. And I think many people carry it really beautifully, but it's not so visible in the mainstream. I think people can feel really isolated by it. So I feel like I really want to bang the drum around that one. And yes, the primary piece is being in service. I could see a different culture that could have an emphasis in a different way, and the artistry might be more important because of people being lost in a kind of a collective, which would be more collapsed. But the distraction, I think, is when you fall in love with your own artistry or fall in love with your own modality. You see this a lot with new practitioners, and it makes sense. It's a very normal thing to have happen, and it's a good thing to wake up from. When you, the classic example is when you have, for instance, a holistic practitioner who was healed by a particular modality, and they fall in love with it and they want to give it to people, so they become an evangelist, if you will, for this particular modality, whatever kind of healing modality it is, and lose sight of what people are really needing. And this is and it can be a real distraction. It becomes the point where you see your modality like this, and you can't see the people on the other side of it. You can't see who you're serving, and it's so funny. I was talking to a client of ours who went through our year-long program and followed our recommendations. She's an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor, and it took her some time to kind of be able to let go of the fact that every other Chinese practitioner that she knew and all these other websites she saw all spend a lot of time explaining Chinese medicine. Right. And the way we recommended to her was to not spend really any time explaining Chinese medicine on the site. And she found it was actually, when she was able to surrender to that a huge relief, and how well her website brings new people in now that it's not scaring them off trying to educate them about Chinese medicine. That the analogy that I use is that when I was a paramedic and I would go out on these calls, these 911 calls, and I didn't really need to give anyone a lecture about cardiophysiology. This is what's going. It's like people just like help me, I'm in pain. I feel like I'm dying.
Well, of course you're in pain because your arteries are clogged because you've been eating a fatty diet and mostly animal products for most of your life. So here's a pamphlet I'd like you to...
I know, exactly. Right. And people get it. It's like, they don't need to become a paramedic. They just need the help that a paramedic can provide. And it's the same for whatever kind of modality you're bringing. Like, you don't want me trying to train you to become a Sufi teacher. That would be too weird. It's like you just need the help. So... that's
But and it's one of the things I really appreciate and just love about your work is that it's funny. You're like Sufi, spiritual, whatever, but you're also, I feel like you're one of the more hard-nosed business people I know as I get to know you, because I feel like you are very brass tacks in that way of, like, are you solving a problem? Who are these people? Or like are you actually doing something and helping people? And are you actually being of service, or are you just like, because I feel like that is the narcissistic side of the artistry, where it's just like, I'm just making my art and everyone should appreciate it. And to me, there's nothing wrong with that. But then it's like, no, that's the path of the artist. And you can go down that, and people may or may not receive your work. And if you're okay with that, then that's wonderful. Just go make your art. But that is different. That's the show, but it's not the business side of the show business. Mm-hmm. And then there are other people who just want to do the business and have no interest in artistry, and they're okay. That's great too. But it's that combination. I feel like ultimately all of us combine it at some extent. And I'd asked you for some examples of 3 of your favorite niche businesses, and so I'd love to go over them, and maybe just if you could quickly say why you think it's such a great example of a niche business. So one was the Urban Herb School.
Yes.
So urbanherbschool.ca.
Yes, Kyle. Garlic as his,
Oh, it's Garlic.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he's someone who came from you, who's been working with us, and he's just like really clear about helping people who want to kind of wildcraft herbs and like learn how to like find edible food in the wilderness around us. And I feel like there's an incredible need. I have a particular thing in my heart these days around anyone that's involved in sustainable organic food production, because Lordy, we need it. It's like the agribusiness industry is killing us all. Thank you.
I think what you mean is Monsanto is saving us all. But continue.
I'm sorry. I went off. I went off message. I lost the talking points. I love what he's doing, and he's really clear about this, and it's. He's not trying to reach everybody, and everybody's going to be wanting to trek into the wilderness to learn how to wildcraft herbs and to find food and to connect with that kind of foraging connection, and to learn how herbs can, it's like not just that finding it, but how can herbs heal you and how can herbs support you. And I think he's like such a great example of this combination of artistry, because he loves the herbs and he loves what he's doing, and he speaks so clearly to the needs of the people, like needing to care for your kids or needing to care for your family in a way that feels really good, and needing to it's like it's more cost effective to wildcraft rather than to spend a bunch of money at
Awesome.
expensive stores. And so I love what he's doing there, and it's working. Like people are really attracted to what he's doing, and I'm really happy to say that he had a huge enrollment with his latest 9-month course, and things have just been kind of continuing for him, and basically just by being really clear and open about what he's doing.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that update.
Yeah.
Another one was the transformation1.com.
Yes. So this was another one of our clients who partnership. They had they have a company where what they do is they provide alternative kind of healthcare options for companies. Cool. They teach sustainable living practices. They teach basically how do you keep your employees healthy without having to spend a bunch on Western medicine, and so this is, again, it's really beautiful because they bring this passion out around how to about holistic medicine, about caring for yourself, about sustainable living, but they have this really clear view about like companies need to decrease sick days, they need to increase productivity, and they need to stop spending so much money on healthcare. This is a U.S. company.
Yeah. I'm like, spend money on healthcare? I don't understand.
Yeah, money on healthcare. I don't understand. What is this that you talk about? It's like, yes, we're dying over here. Most expensive, least effective healthcare system. Anyway, another place I could get going. I love my country, and it is so painful what we're doing.
My brother does stand up, and he was doing a gig in Seattle, and he was like, he was talking about the traffic. He's like, you all drive like you have health care, but you don't.
That'd be even more successful in Boston, but Boston drivers are crazy. But I live there, so anyway, I drove an ambulance in Boston, actually. So let me tell you. But anyway, back on topic. They and so they do this wonderful combination of really helping companies bring sustainability, bring the sense of sustainable eating habits and exercise and yoga and holistic practices to to their employees.
Wow.
Saving them money, and so they've got this artistry piece going, and they're meeting the needs of the company. Like they're speaking the language of the HR director, who is like, I've got the out of control budget, and I've got all these sick days. They're not trying to promote healthy lifestyle just because it's important. Like they're able to meet them where they are and what they're struggling with.
I love that theme of meeting people where they are. It just feels like I'm seeing that increasingly in marketing and niching being so connected to that. And the last one you thought of was joyfulliving.com.
Yes. I love this one too because I tell you, Deborah Gurnard, who she really focuses on belly stress, digestion issues, people that have health related to that, and it's huge. How much that's widespread. But she's a sister Sufi of mine. She's like a trained Sufi healer, the same way that I am, and she does incredible spiritual healing work. And she's done basically the same thing that I fell into, which is like, stop trying to sell Sufi healing and actually there's an echo in here. Meet people where they are, and being able to really speak the language. And her workshops are selling out, and it's like basically she's limiting how many people she's taking in because she's still working on foundations, and she doesn't want all time taken up just with patients and clients.
Wow.
But she's doing incredible work, and she's also kind of the wounded healer because she had to heal herself from some really intense belly issues that she had going on, and digestive issues, and it worked, and she does incredible work. So it's this piece of speaking the language of the people and having people respond.
I love it. And I'd asked you also, how do you think people would know if they found a good niche? What's the most important criteria? And that you'd said, so if people, they would know that they had a good niche if they said it to somebody. They say, here's my niche. And after they said it, somebody was like, oh, that's me, or they had names or faces pop up without having to think about it too much. They were just like, oh man, like Mary would really like this or that.
That's our test. That's what we tell all our clients to do. It's like we have a process for coming up with your one compelling sentence, how to say what you do in one compelling sentence, and we say, okay, now go test it. And the test is to say it or write it to people, and we don't want people to say, oh, that's cool, or that's nice, or wow, that's interesting. We want people to say, that's me, or I know somebody like that. The names and faces response that because we're connected with our problems. We're so identified with our problems. We struggle with what we struggle with, and it becomes a piece of our identity. And so, if I say back trouble, God, I'm having back trouble, chances are you probably just had some names pop up for you of like, oh wow, who would I send Mark to if you had back trouble?
Totally.
Yes. It's like, oh, I'm struggling with whatever. It's like, oh yeah, I've got a referral for you. And green building. God, we've got this play structure that we're putting stuff in our preschool, and we're trying to find some non-toxic, adhesive. It's like instant referral. I immediately thought of a store in Portland that I called, and you probably thought of one that you knew, just as I was saying it, without you having to think about it. That's the kind of response we want to your niche, where you say, okay, this is what I'm doing. I help people who are like, their health is really affected by digestive and belly issues, and it's like, oh wow, that reminds me of boom.
Well, it's interesting because it just had me think of how with a niche, it's not just in the moment, like at a party you said, I work with these kind of people struggling with these kinds of problems, help them get this result. It's not just in the moment that they say yes, but it might be like you're saying, a week or a month later, and they're like, oh man, I met at the party, they had this very easy to remember website, and the referrals can happen that way, and it's like you develop a reputation around that. But one of the things that I really got from you was this idea of 3 elements of a niche, which was actually really super helpful. Now it's one of the core things that I use when I work with clients to help them get clear on the different parts of it, because I think people conflate them together and mix them up. And so you talk about the demographic, the psychographic, and naming the problem.
Right.
So I'm wondering if you can share a few examples of that and just sort of your theory around it.
Right. Well, here's the thing, is that the theory about it is that according to the Sufi way of seeing things, the divine created the creation, created the world, the physical reality, out of a yearning to be known. And because we carry that inside us, we all have this yearning to be known. And that happens at many different levels. And so when you get seen for who you are, when somebody can witness you in a problem without judging you or thinking you're broken, there's a deep sense of relief that comes.
Totally.
And so by being able to name a demographic, a psychographic, and a problem, you're from this place of compassion. You're seeing someone. There's like a healing that actually happens when people are seen at that level from a place of compassion and love. And so a demographic is an observable phenomenon, it's an observable trait that someone else can verify. It's like anything that somebody else can verify. So women or age and gender tend to be the most known demographics, but it could be anything. Belong to a certain club or buys it.
The scenes you're a part of and all that.
Yeah, exactly. The psychographic is a belief or a value that you hold, and people tend to conflate that with the problem that you're struggling with, but it's not. It's the value or the belief. It's something that like the example that I usually use is like believes in God is a psychographic. Because only you know it. It's a belief inside. Only you can verify it. And a demographic is attends church weekly. And so they don't necessarily mean, people can go to church without believing in God, and people can believe in God without going to church. But one is externally verifiable and one isn't. And having both of those is a really powerful way that we identify in the world. It's a name of value. And I can't tell you, when I quit being a paramedic, how disorienting it was to give up that demographic identity, and how strongly I still hold today, like being a business owner, and how much I refer, that it makes up part of my identity. And from an enlightened place, our egos like to hold, but unless your entire market is enlightened spiritual masters, then it's still good to kind of deal with the identity. And then what we've been talking about already, the problem as they state it. What is the problem that they're struggling with, that they need help with? And notice that I don't think it's necessary to talk about results in this one compelling sentence. I don't think it's necessary to kind of go any further. You say your one compelling sentence, I help people who are, people are struggling with belly pain, or people who are, I don't have the full one compelling sentence for Deborah in front of me, but it's like, for Transformation One, I think it's something along the lines of like, I help people, we help companies, demographic who, really care about their employees, psychographic, who are struggling with, productivity and runaway health costs problem. And you get that sense of, if somebody's like interested in that, then they'll ask for more, and then you can tell them more.
Totally.
But that's enough. And if people go, then you can go, okay, well, then you just go on with your conversation. You don't need to elaborate or bore them or create glazed eye syndrome.
Yeah, I've had it where I've chatted with people. It's like, well, they're like, what do you do? I'm like, well, how a lot of like holistic practitioners struggle with getting enough clients, and they were just like, nope. And I was like, great. And what do you do?
Right, exactly. And that's an excellent formulation for the one compelling sentence. We teach that also. Well, how, kind of like the story version, and it's awesome. But then, you don't have to bore people. Like, I see people launch into this like 5-minute explanation of what they do, and meanwhile the person's like, how do I get out of here? I'm sorry, that Saturday Night Live skit of like, the crazy girl at the party that you wish you hadn't.
Totally.
So from the Weekend Update sketch anyway, but it's like just letting yourself bloop just a little bit, see what the response is, and then either continue or don't.
What's interesting is like that little sentence, to like boil it down. It's so simple. When people say it, it's like, how a lot of salespeople really hate cold calling. It's like that's just a real short thing, and it seems so easy, but it's like often so hard to get there. But the beauty of it is, once you say it, it's like, instead of being like, hey, buddy pal, how you doing? Let's build rapport and let me get you to like me. And you do all this dancing, only to find out 3 weeks later there's no fit at all.
Right.
With this, you're figuring out if there's a fit like from moment one, and then if there's enough of a fit to continue, you continue. But it's almost like a deal breaker thing where it's like, if they don't get it, if they don't like it, if they're not into it, then it's like just no need to continue, no need to pursue things where there's no fit.
And this goes really well with what we were talking about in that other conversation recently. I love, the new thing you're on about, about just being really clear. It's like, make it really clear so that they can get in, so you don't have to waste a lot of time. You don't waste their time and you don't waste your time. And it's so much easier.
It's so much easier to just be vulnerable and be like, this is who I am, this is who I help, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not good at, here's the parameters. Mm-hmm. If you're interested, sign up. And people do or they don't. It doesn't mean we can't craft great offers, and it doesn't mean we can't, can't do that. But fundamentally, I think coming from that orientation of is it a fit versus trying to sell people is better. And you can't have the is it a fit unless you know who it's a fit for. Mm-hmm. Well, awesome, man. Thanks so much for taking the time. Is there anything else? I want to also, if you want to check out Mark's stuff, check out heartofbusiness.com. The motto is every act of business can be an act of love. Mark is one of my favorite colleagues, and I send a lot of clients to him because I don't do as much one-on-one stuff in a structured and wonderful way. And so I send a lot of business to Heart of Business. So if you're struggling with marketing, if marketing feels gross or uncomfortable for you, and you're interested in how to bring your spiritual values in alignment with the way that you do business and marketing and sales, I just can't recommend anything higher. And go check them out. And I don't know, do you have any closing thoughts or things you'd like to say?
Well, that was very generous, and the only thing that I want to add to that is first do the Niching for Hippies course. Don't come to us till you do that. I mean, we have our own stuff, which I love, but I mean, you're brilliant, and I'm really happy you're doing this course again and putting it out there. So
me too. It's so funny. I say it to people, and just like to me, it's whether my course or however they figure out their niche. It's like every marketing consultant I know, the first thing they do when they sit down with you is who's your target market. And so if you have it, it's like, you just make everyone's easier.
Everything is so much easier. It's hard work to kind of get to it. And it's so much better than struggling for 10 years.
Yes. Amen. Well, this has been a delight. And thanks so much for making the time to do this. And, we'll be in touch.
Yeah. Peace and love.
Thanks. Take care, everybody.
Ciao.